Hello everyone and welcome. In this video I'm going to talk about vectors in C++. Now a vector is a data structure that has similar features to an array, but instead of having a static size, it changes its size as you add more elements to it. So it is a dynamic container. Now the first thing to do in order to use a vector is to include vector since it's not in the namespace that we're using. So include vector like so. Now to create a vector, you're going to write vector and then these little arrows. And inside of these arrows, you're going to put the data type that the vector is going to contain. So if you want a vector of integers, you're going to write int, and then the name of the vector, it can be vec, for example, which is going to equal, and then curly braces, and then the elements you want to put in the vector. So this is pretty similar to an array, but instead of saying the number of elements, you can just put the elements that you want to put inside of the vector, and it's going to create a vector of that size, okay? Now, in order to output these elements, you can iterate through the vector as you would with an array and output each element in each iteration. So for int I equals 0, I is smaller than 3, I plus plus, I want to see out vec index I, and then end L, like so. And now if I run this, this is going to output all of the elements of the vector. Now another way to do this is using a for each loop. So instead of using an iterator, you're going to say auto u in vec, and then I'm going to see out u. So basically what this does is instead of iterating through the vector and outputting each element by index, it's going to iterate through the elements of the vector themselves. So basically what this is saying is for each element inside of the vector vec, I want to see out that element and then an end line. So this is going to do the same thing as the other loop that I showed you. So this is how you iterate through an array, through a vector. This is how you output the elements of the vector. Now you don't really need to do this. You can just create an empty vector and then you can push elements into the vector. Now how do you do this? You're just going to write vec.pushback like so, and then parentheses, and then the element that you want to push back, and this is going to add an element to the end of the vector. So if I run this, this is going to output 2, which is the only element in the vector. Now if I say vec.pushback like so, for example 6, and I run this, this is going to output 2 and 6. So it appends 2 to the back of the vector, and then it appends 6 to the back of the vector, so after the element 2. And now when I output the elements of the vector, it's going to output first 2 and then 6, okay? And I can do this as many times as I want. Each time I add a new element, the vector is going to adjust its size to accommodate the new element, and it's going to store it inside of the vector. Now, a vector also has a bunch of useful functionalities that I'm going to teach you right now. So adding to the pushback method, we also have the front method. Oops, not front, like so. So this method is going to access the first element of the vector, okay? So if I see out vec.front, let me just delete this. This is going to give me the element that's at the front of the vector. So the first element of the vector, which in this case, it's going to be 2, okay? Now we also have the back method. Now the back method is going to give me the element that's at the back of the vector. So if I run this, this is going to give me 6, right? So first 2 from the front method. Let me just add an end line here. So the front method is going to return 2. The back method is going to return 6. Now the size method, let me just delete this. It's going to give me the number of elements in the vector. So if I run this, this is going to give me 2, which is the number of elements of this vector. Now if I push back some more elements like this, like 3, for example, and I run this, this is going to give me 3 because now the vector has 3 elements inside of it, okay? So now let me just delete all of this to make it a little bit less confusing, and I'm going to add some elements to the vector manually. So now I'm going to teach you how you can insert and remove an element from the vector by index, okay? So let's start with insert. Let's write vect.insert like so. Now the parameters for this are a little bit tricky. So I'm going to write vect.begin plus 2, for example, and then 5. So let me explain all of this. So vec.begin is going to be a pointer that's pointing at the first position of the vector. Okay, so this is a vector. This is a pointer. This is a little arrow that's going to be pointing at the first element, which is going to be 1. Okay, now I'm going to sum 2 to that pointer. What does this mean? This means I'm going to move 2 positions to the front. Okay, so I'm going to walk from 1 to 3. So this is the vec.begin. So this is the pointer. This is going to be vec.begin plus 1, vec.begin plus 2. And this index, where I end up, index number 2 at position 3, so the third element of the vector, is going to be pushed forward, and the element 5, it's going to be put in its position. Okay, so let me illustrate this by outputting the vector. So let's say for auto u in vect, I want to see out u and then NL. Now, if I run this, this is going to output 1, 2, 1, 2, and then 5, and then 3, 4. Okay, so what happened here? So this is the pointer that's pointing at number 1. I walk 2 positions forward, and I put an element in this position, and then this element right here, the element 3 that was in the position 3 one move ago, so before I put the new element in the vector, is going to be pushed forward, and the new element at position 3, it's going to be the element that I added with the insert method. Okay, so that's what insert does. Now I can also use erase. Now instead of saying vec.begin plus 2, I'm going to say vec.begin plus 3, for example. And basically what this is going to do, it's going to erase the third position of the vector. So it's going to erase the element that's in index 2. Okay, so this is vec.begin, this is vec.begin plus 1, vec.begin plus 2, vec.begin plus 3. So this is going to erase the element 4 from the vector. And now if I run this, this is going to output 1, 2, and 3, which are the remaining elements of the vector. So now I'm going to teach you how you can sort a vector. So let me delete this and let me add some randomly ordered elements to the vector like so. And now I'm going to include algorithm, which is the library where the sort function is located. And now to use it, I'm going to write sort, and inside of the sort function, I'm going to use 2 pointers, one to the beginning of the vector and one to the end of the vector. So vec.begin, this is going to point at the first element, so it's going to point at the element 1. And then a vec.end, this is going to be a pointer to the last element, so 9 in this case. So basically what this is going to do is this is going to sort the vector from the first element to the last element. So now if I run this, this is going to output the sorted vector, okay? So all of the elements of the vector in a sorted manner. So I think that's all I had to show you today. Vectors really aren't complicated. They're basically arrays that have additional functionality and that change their size depending on how many elements you put inside of them. So I hope this video was helpful. I hope it was easy to understand. If you have any questions, as always, don't hesitate to ask. Please like and subscribe to support the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.